You're listening to Finding My Own Weird, where we'll follow yours truly on a journey to discover my own authentic weird self. I'm your host, Christine Lassiter. Joining me will be amazing guests who found their own formula and are living and thriving as their own wonderfully weird selves. So hold on tight, it's about to get weird. When I moved to Portland, I did so without seeing the neighborhoods I'd be living and working in ahead of time. I was transferring from an Allstate in Texas to an Allstate in Portland, and I decided to get an apartment near the address of the office. Our third-story apartment overlooked the Boom Boom room across the street. Now, we could have looked at this as tacky, but we thought it was hilarious. We were quite disappointed when they changed it to the Reveal Lounge. It doesn't hold that same campy, strippy charm as the Boom Boom room. But my office was in Multnomah Village, a very charming little nook. Restaurants and bars, all local establishments. I spent my first 3 years in Portland in that community, and I was very involved. I even painted my first mural there. What an undertaking, 20 feet tall by 48 feet wide. Someone should really test me to see if I have all my faculties, because I look at things like these massive undertakings and I just think, yeah, I can do that. I did. It took me a year, but I did. And now I have a mural in Portland, and it even has my daddy on it. Pretty cool if you ask me. Multnomah Village is also where I met our next guest, Brooks. He's a funky UPS driver who charmed the entire village. And wait till you see what he can do with an octopus. Hey, Brooks, thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, what's happening?
Oh, well, just doing a little podcast here. So I actually first met you. You were our UPS driver at the Allstate office I was working at the time. And, UPS drivers, they come and they go. Actually, I first really noticed something unusual about you when we got your Christmas cards.
You got one of those?
Yeah, we got one of those in the office, and I was like, oh, this guy might be a little bit different. And and then ended up following you on social media, saw your TikToks. You actually did a TikTok with my mural, which is right next to the Allstate office on Healthy Pets. And
that was fun.
That was really cool. So you definitely were a character from the beginning of when I first knew you. But from what I understand, you were raised by hippies. So you might have been a character like early on.
I'm just now starting in the past, probably since I've had kids, and looking at my kids and thinking, oh, me as a kid, and being like, I was kind of a handful, but I was the fourth son, and I think my parents were like, we tried all the other things. Let's just see what happens if we leave him alone and let him pretty much do whatever he wants. So yeah,
well, they didn't have the energy at that point after all those kids.
Fourth kid, my mom was in school when I was younger, and all this stuff. It was like, well, at least he's doing pretty well in school. By the time I actually graduated high school the normal way, and my other brothers chose different paths. So it was like, well, I mean, yeah, he's sure, he doesn't do all the things he's supposed to do, but on his report card, always pleasure to have in class.
Oh, awesome.
Later missing assignments, doesn't turn in homework.
Yeah. Well, my last guest was unschooled, so you just try your best as parents, and you just hope for the best. So when you described your parents as hippies in your bio, what does that look like?
My mom actually took off to San Francisco when she was 14, 15, just, bad life going on, a lot of stuff going on with her. And during that time, mid-60s, just being like, I'm out of here. And, that song, hey, come on down to San Francisco. Are you going to San Francisco? She's like, oh, it sounds like a nice place. And, yeah, she's just gone from there and had a kid down there, came back up, just kept it going.
Right.
And, yeah, it's always been a fun time in my house. My dad he was like a hippie as well, ran off. I mean, during Vietnam War, he really didn't want to go over there and kill people. So took off to Canada and hid out for a little bit up there.
Like just what you see on TV, like actually went to Canada.
And it was just my childhood, my life growing up. And I'm thinking, like, the story of my family is, like, pretty, I don't know, just a lot of stuff going on.
Right.
Over all these years. And I feel pretty happy to be with that. If any other parents might have been a little harder on me. But also I push back on authority quite a bit. So
were you raised here in Portland?
Yeah, I grew up southeast Portland.
Okay.
And just stuck around, actually. Married my wife. I started dating my wife. She was a neighbor girl, but I didn't start dating her until I was 21. So it was pretty great because I knew her family. I'm friends with everybody. And
right. Did they have any idea that y'all were going to grow up and be together?
No. I think we work well together, my wife and I.
Yeah.
Because she was like harder working and more, and I was just kind of floating along, and she was more planned. And so once we got together, it was just like working together. When I bring more goofy, and I bring that out of her, and she keeps us organized.
Sure. Yeah. So when you were in school and stuff, did you have any hobbies or anything that you enjoyed?
I have lots of different hobbies, but it's like I'll do this one major for 6 months. I've also realized I think I have, the ADHD.
Oh, I'm medicated for it. Yeah.
You are?
Most creatives, I think, have some degree of that. I'm on the highest medication for that. You can.
I was looking into it. I was talking to a doctor, and he was an older guy. I was checking out a different doctor, and he's like, I don't believe in that. Just walk it off. I'm like, all right, but, sometimes I sit on my couch and I can't get up because I don't want to do anything. I can't bring myself, even though I have all this stuff going on in my brain.
Right.
It has to, like, come naturally where I'll get up and spend 6 hours whittling on something.
Hyper-focused. When you do get into something, you get hyper-focused, but...
And then later I can just be like, walk away and not touch that thing forever again.
Do you ever get like 90% done with something and then you get to, something happens, you have to get up, and then it's like, oh, well, that's not going to get finished.
Yeah, a lot in my head. It's just like I have quite a few projects where it's like one thing is holding me back from finishing this project. And in my mind, it's going to be a little harder. I'm going to have to go a little bit farther or something like that. And then I'll just set it down, and maybe I'll come back later and be like, why didn't I just do this thing? Right. It took me 5 minutes.
It was nothing.
It was nothing.
Yeah, you should see a different doctor.
It's like one hurdle stopped me. I'm like, oh, I gotta go to the store and get a thing. And then I'm not going to the store now. Yeah. You definitely need to maybe go get checked out again. It's a little bit life-changing. Makes you feel a little bit validated in like, hey, I'm not lazy. My brain wouldn't let me push through that. It's a real thing. I always think I'm the laziest and hardworking, like most hardworking person at times. Same time, within, an hour, I can just do both. It's a self-esteem booster when you realize it is something that is chemical that can be worked on. It's a game changer, so I highly recommend it. So were you always creative? Yeah, I actually went to an arts elementary school, which was just Buckman Elementary is like some arts elementary school. And then from there, I went to Da Vinci Middle School. It's like an arts magnet school. But when I started, it didn't exist. Like, I went from 5th grade. Some of the parents at the elementary school said, we want to keep this going, and there's no arts middle school in Portland. Right. So they just made it up, and I just went from that to that. And I was learning everything, pottery, whatever, drawing, photography. They had all these classes. But being a punk kid who didn't, do his homework and stuff, I always had fun doing this stuff. But I kind of pushed back, and I felt like I missed out. I even took dance classes. They didn't have PE.
Right.
It was like dance classes and learn tap and ballet. I mean, as much as they could get a 13-year-old to get in there.
See, it's just a foreign concept to me to go to like an arts elementary school, an arts junior high. I mean, our school was just school. The dancing we did was fourth grade square dancing, which is just the worst thing ever. So it's like it's fascinating to me that there are places that have schools that really nurture that creativity.
And yeah, it's nice that I got to check it all out. And the school has gotten pretty big. I hear people talking about it still. It's in Southeast, or it's right on the border of Southeast and North Portland or wherever on Burnside.
Right.
But they've done a lot of stuff, and I was like, I talked to a younger guy a couple years ago, and I was like, oh, I started in 96. And he's like, that was the first year it started. He's like, you're an original. Ooh. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. But thinking back on it, it was just a middle school thrown together by a bunch of like parents and
like a test and that
and it worked
and
like
grew.
Maybe 150 kids the first couple years. We got to paint our own lockers. Like we were supposed to do it at the school. I actually showed up with a screwdriver and took my door off and brought it home. And at the time, my older brother, who's a big influence on me, he does a lot of painting and is an artist that I look up to. Like he was doing like this cool, I don't know, street art or whatever. So I just brought it and I gave it to him, and I was like, hey, you want to paint my locker? So I like kind of cheated.
Yeah.
I painted the inside, but they actually were having everybody repaint over the lockers every year.
Right.
Except for mine. They're like, this one's a little too cool.
You're like, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to my brother.
I outsourced it.
Yeah.
Well, when you were younger, did you think you would grow up to be something creative? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I've never wanted to be anything.
Oh.
I've never really had any aspirations for greatness, really.
And it doesn't even really matter because so many people have an idea of what they want to be when they grow up, and then I was going to be a veterinarian. And now I swear I'm like,
hate animals.
Oh my God, not hate. That's harsh.
Now you want to put down animals.
But my cat is 15 years old, and I'm like, is today the day? Yeah, I'm not as enthusiastic about animals as I thought I would be. So
I also have an old 16-year-old dog who wears a diaper. My wife sews diapers for our dog, and we put pads in there. But we're like, come on, you're 16.
You've led a good life.
You're still walking around and eating and having fun, but just go over that rainbow bridge.
Mine's got like Benjamin Button's disease. All of a sudden, she's like full of energy. She's like bounding up door frames, and I'm like, what the hell? You were not this energetic when you were like a little 3-year-old cat. So I'm like, this cat's going to live forever. It's going to outlive us all. So you didn't have any aspirations. What did you do after you graduated school?
I just went straight to work. There was somebody in the hallway in my high school with a sign for UPS, and hey, we'll pay for your college, and not knowing.
You've been at UPS since you graduated high school?
Yeah, 3 days after high school.
Oh, yeah, that's a long time to be.
It's 20 years this June.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, I'm really good at just showing up and consistently.
Right.
I'm pretty good at showing up. That's my main thing.
I mean, that's
mostly on time.
2/3 of the job is, showing up.
Being there.
Yeah. Have you been in different, has your route been in different neighborhoods throughout Portland?
I started working in the warehouse like everybody does there, and just part-time and trying to go to school because I thought probably a semester and a half in, I was going to Portland State, and I was like, this is not like high school. I actually have to like do the things. And they don't care. They're just like, oh, yeah, you already paid us.
Yeah.
No, you get an F. And that's when, if I get an F, UPS was paying for it if you get at least a D.
Ooh, yeah.
And then I got an F, and they're like, you owe the school $1,500. And I was like, what? I got to pay for that, F?
Wow. Yeah, that sucks. So you were like, instead of trying harder, you were like...
try harder.
You're like, screw that. No.
Yeah.
So you decided, okay, no more college.
I've just been enjoying my time.
Right.
Luckily, my parents, grateful my parents, on top of their house, there's an apartment. So I was renting from my parents and
that's
not
convenient.
making very much money. And, sometimes they didn't get their rent. But what were they going to do, kick me out and send me back downstairs?
If they were a good parent, maybe so.
Get back in your old bedroom.
Get out there. Do some work. Get hard work. How did you incorporate any creativity working in the warehouse? Was there anything?
I was just whatever would come up to my mind. Mm-hmm. Like I worked at night. I'd get off at 3 a.m. and hang out with people after work and go to bed at whatever and wake up at 2 in the afternoon. I didn't have to be back to work until 10.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like randomly I'd get an idea like, today I'm going to build a coffee table. And I was like, what should this coffee table? I remember this specifically. It was randomly, like, I'm going to build a coffee table. It's going to be a golf-themed coffee table.
Did you play golf?
I didn't even play golf. But we knew a guy that worked as, like, a cart person at the golf course, and he could just give us golf balls. So he's like, hey, you want some buckets of golf balls? And I'm like, yeah, 19-year-old me.
Yeah.
I'll take buckets of golf balls. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but they're worth something. So then I made like this cool golf ball table with the green, and maybe somebody legally distinct from me needed the hole for the green.
Right.
So there's a golf course in Eastmoreland that is pretty close to the road and I don't know. I ended up with one, and it worked into my. But my brother likes golf, so I gave him the golf table.
So it did find a home.
It found a home
that of somebody who could appreciate the craft.
I'm sure it ended up in a landfill at some point. It wasn't that great, but I felt great about it.
Right,
it was a nice project for me and the kids in the neighborhood. There was like 10 boys in my neighborhood. Then we would all. Probably varying 6 years. So we were all just some big gang running around. And I'd be like, hey, anybody want to help me build this today? Or anybody want to do this weird thing? And just, whatever.
Your usual gang behavior.
Gang behavior,
right.
building coffee tables. My friend had a welder, and we were welding like statues and stuff out of old bike parts. Used to just be able to get, it was a City Bikes had a free pile, and you could just go get metal from them. This is before like the scrappers took hold and just any scrap gets turned in, and you could my dad had a pipe cutter, so I learned how to use this pipe cutter, and we're just cutting stuff and making statues, and we ended up selling them to like neighbor parents, and they're like, hey, I want a statue for my garden. Whatever, I want this, and just doing fun stuff like that.
That's cool. So after working in the warehouse, did you move up obviously you did. But,
yeah, at 21 is when you can be a driver. So I just my friend was like, hey, you want to sign up? I'm signing up to be a driver. Do you want to sign up on this list? And sure enough, they called me. And I, just kept showing up. And I like being a driver because it's just me out there.
Right.
Doing my own thing, just empty out the truck. I get to talk to cool people that I meet and do silly stuff, and I try and build that in.
Yeah, I mean that's obvious. That's how that's how I noticed you different from other UPS drivers I've come in contact with for years and years and years. So you really do get to do a lot of interesting, fun stuff while you're in uniform in the truck. Does UPS, do they encourage that?
No, not really. I started, I'm kind of like a introvert, extrovert kind of, I don't know what all that is, but I don't like making first contact. Like, I'm sure I came into your shop and I was perfectly quiet and was like, hello there, hi, here's this package, I sign for it. But the more I get to know you, and if you were to talk to me more, I would talk back because I don't want to, burden people by
right. I understand that completely.
Being weird when they're not. But sometimes I like surprising people by just coming in, saying a weird thing, dropping off their package, and they're like, "What did he just say?" Nothing crude, but just like, that was an odd thing.
Just odd, yeah.
Yeah. Say something weird, drop off the package, take off, and they're like, "What?" Or
dress as Santa,
I dress as Santa every Christmas Eve or whenever the day is closest to Christmas Eve.
Right.
And that is a blast.
I'll tell you that the amount of love, because you work in Multnomah Village, and that's where I worked, and follow still, even though I don't work in the village anymore, the amount of love that the village has for you, because the different shops post about you often.
Yeah.
Like, they show you love all the time. And it is because you're weird and interesting and entertaining. So, I mean, it trickles. They all love that so much. And Portland's made up of all these little tiny communities. And so when you're in a community and you can bring joy to somebody, with the pandemic, you were very important during the pandemic. It goes a long way, and people recognize it, and they shout out to you a lot.
I love it. Like, just I've been in that neighborhood for 10 years now, and just driving down the street, there's all these people that I've met over all these years that I'm always looking at faces while driving, and I just try and wave at every single person. Maybe I'll just honk and wave at some random people, and it's just a fun part of my job. Right.
So you said that your wife is a little bit more of she's a harder worker. She's kind of the yin to your yang a little bit, it sounds like. What does she do?
She's actually a teacher.
Okay.
She's just got back this year to teaching. She's a high school math teacher.
Oh, bless her heart, man.
Luckily, we were able, with just my income, for her to stay home we have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. So she stayed home, and this was her first year back, and really enjoying it. Now that our kids they pretty much take care of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, kids are...
Just have to yell at them for brushing their teeth and
right.
the stuff nobody wants to do. I wish somebody would yell at me for those things.
Tell your wife that. She just needs to listen to this. Hey, you need to yell at him
No.
for brushing his teeth. And so you have these small kids. Are they also creative? What's their personalities like?
Each one of them is like me, but in different ways. It's like, the pushing back on authority. I get that from one of them, and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that either. But you have to.
Right.
It's like, nobody told me parenting was going to be like, I got to tell other people what to do.
And they do, and they won't automatically do it just because you tell them to. That's the part that sucks.
Yeah.
I don't mind telling them. I mind telling them 10 times.
Yeah. No, they think it was only one time.
Right.
Listen,
why are you yelling at me?
What about the 9 times that I was really, really sweet to you?
Right.
Remember those? Remember we were giggling and laughing, and you were like, yeah, I'm going to get up and brush my teeth. And then
you
10
didn't.
minutes later, and you didn't, and now here I am.
Yeah, and then you're the beast. How dare you?
I gotta be in charge of somebody.
All right. So one of them pushes back. What about the other one?
The other one is pretty artistic, and both of them are artistic, but he does a lot more drawing and a lot more painting and building and stuff. So, and a little sweetheart, but mischievous.
Yeah, you were probably that too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It sounds like you had a little mischievous little
one of the problems I get into is when I was a kid, I would do things, but I would wait until my parents walked out of the room and then do the thing they didn't want me to do.
Right.
Or grab some cookies, make sure nobody's looking, grab the cookies, then walk to my room. Not just straight up. It's
stare you in the eye
5 minutes before. Yeah, looking me in the eye, getting these cookies, and be like, try and stop me, old man. Growing up and being a parent is really hamper, but I love it.
Yeah, it's not for the weak-hearted for sure. So you probably do a lot of creative things with them. You join in on some of the art. You get them involved in some of that stuff that you're doing now.
Yep. I try to actually, I haven't talked about it. I do 2 podcasts. So I have podcast gear set up in my basement. And my kids have gotten into it a little bit, like doing, like wanting to record little stories. But we never quite, maybe I'm like, this podcast is going great. Right. And then they're just like, we're done. I'm like, come on, we got to finish that thing.
Keep it going, man.
Let's go. Or they start messing around and touching the mic and like banging on stuff. I'm like, but this is going to be a great podcast. I'm like, all right, let's go do something else. I'm like, we almost finished. We had a great thing going there.
Oh, you mean they got 90% done and then they just something else.
Uh-oh.
They might be more like you than you think.
Call me out.
Yeah, I would actually enjoy just hearing 7-year-old, 10-year-old just doing their own little podcast that they just come up with on their own. It's got to be interesting conversations.
It's a lot. We talk a lot about Minecraft, which is the big thing.
I'm aware. My daughter's 20 and still, and she's a mother, and she still does Minecraft stuff sometimes.
It's fun.
Yeah, I never got into it, but it's a thing.
So much different. Like I try and keep up with the gaming because I've played video games when I was younger, like regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and I try and keep up with them with their games and play along with what they want to play. But it's like, hey, we're playing this game, and then I get my computer out, we play this game, and then I'll like practice, and after they go to sleep, and I'll try and get better, and I'm like, let's play that game we were playing last week. Now we're playing a different game this week, and I'm like, but I just learned how to play that game.
I can't keep up.
There's just too many awesome games, and they're pretty much free online for
it's not
kids
like
to
when
play.
I was growing up and we had Atari and we would play Pac-Man and
Pong,
Frogger, Frogger and Cubert. It was very limited at that point.
And you just had like 2 games you could play.
Yeah. There was not. We had just what came with. I don't think my parents ever bought any additional games. We got whatever came with the system.
Luckily, Frogger was pretty good.
Oh, my parents who hated video games thought they were going to warp our minds of that mindset.
Maybe it worked.
And then one year decided to buy us an Atari, and my sister and I would get up and we'd hear noise, and they were playing it in the middle of the night. My parents were playing it, and I'm like, whoa. So, yeah, and maybe it did. Maybe that's what's caused all this over the years.
They were right.
A little
You'd
Cubert.
Still be in Texas if it wasn't for Cubert.
Oh man, thank God for Cubert. So, what made you decide to start doing the podcasts?
I've always listened to podcasts pretty much since back in the day when you had to like download them onto a computer and then put them onto like an MP3 or whatever. It was a lot harder back then. And then
you just click.
And then you'd listen to it, and I'm out working, so I listen to podcasts all day.
Oh, yeah.
Or talk to friends on the phone or whatever. And I just was talking to my friend on the phone while working and being like, we could talk for an hour about stuff. We should do, and like my other, I do 2 podcasts. One's called the Basement Buddies podcast, and then after work, one word, with Dan and Brooks. My friend Dan did the title, and it's kind of hard to find. There's a lot of after work podcasts. It's one word, with Dan and Brooks. And just started doing it about 5 years ago. Both of them, I think one started a month or a week before the other one.
So you did them back, like on top of each other. You started them. So not really knowing that much about them, and you started too? Man, that's crazy because I'm doing one, and I definitely couldn't do 2.
My friend, this is definitely not as awesome as this. Maybe I need to get on some ADHD medication and I'd step up my game.
Actually, it's probably very awesome.
But my brother, who's the artist of the family, he had a mixing board, And I was talking to him, and he's like, I have the stuff. I have microphones. He makes, like, what's he got? Like sound of, like, synth. He's got a bunch of those things, and he makes music. And, like, I don't know if he raps along or does something, but he likes doing that stuff, and he had it. So I borrowed it from him for a while. And the first 20 of each podcast, we weren't even posting them. We were just sitting down, talking. We'd have people over. We'd just chat and
Did you record it?
We'd record them.
Oh, okay. But you just wouldn't do anything with them.
We just had them, record them. We'd listen back to them. Like, I think I shared them with maybe 5 friends. Like, I had a Google Drive link that I would share with friends of mine before even knowing how to post a podcast. And yeah, it took like probably 6 months before I were like, okay, I think we're good enough.
Right.
Probably. I mean, those first 20 were not great.
Well, that's kind of the fun of it, though.
Practice.
I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and I listen to Smartless with Jason Bateman and Will Arnett and John Hayes, and I'm listening to that. I'm like, those guys aren't polished. Those guys screw up.
Yep.
They talk over each other. I can do all those things.
That's I'd compare my podcast to like those. The After Work podcast, we try and have it more with like a couple bits, like a couple different things, and more podcasts like. And my friend Dan doesn't like cussing, and I don't mind cussing, so that's
mine's not censored.
Okay, that's fucking great. Yeah,
it's awesome.
So that's the PG-13 podcast,
right.
And I try and every once in a while I'll be like, what the fudge? I can censor myself, and then the other one's just like free for all, whatever,
right.
Goofy, silly things. I'm pretty much trying to make my friend John laugh. And if I make him laugh, I know I did something fun.
And now a word from your sponsor, me. The mortgage business has had some pretty vast ups and downs in the past few years. We got so used to the 2 and 3.5% interest rates that when the world turned upside down and the rates went to 5 and 6 and even 7s, we all lost our minds. But things are settling down a bit. The sticker shock is starting to wear off a bit. And people are realizing that they just can't wait forever to start their dream and settle down. The first step is to talk to a mortgage broker. Hey, I'm a mortgage broker. And have them, or me, take a look at your situation and help you get positioned to own a home. And if you're not in the right place, but you want to see what it would take to get you in the right place, I can help with that as well. There's nothing more disappointing than finding your dream home and not being quite prepared to buy. Call me or email me for more information to get pre-approved in Oregon or Washington. You can email me at Christine@tworiversmtg.com. That's CHRISTINE at TWORIVERSMTG.com. NMLS 2248608. And now, back to your program. Right. So you got the 2 podcasts, but you also do a lot of, you still do a lot of like arts, wood stuff, all of that. What got you started back doing all of that stuff?
Probably, it was before the pandemic started. I just randomly, actually, probably 10 years ago, I was thinking, had the kids, or had one kid at the time, and I was talking to my wife, I don't have any hobbies. Like, I go to work, I come home, watch TV. That's it. At the time, I used to play the trumpet in high school.
I did too.
And
so did Poison Waters.
That's a gateway drug to being weird.
To being weird. All the trumpet players out there.
But I'd go to class, play the trumpet, and never practice at home.
Right.
So I just got as good as you can get in class,
sure.
which was, I mean, I could play some songs.
I can't now, but I could.
Yep. And I think I can play Ode to Joy still. I think I still have muscle memory.
I can't remember what any of the notes are.
Fingering. And I was like, maybe I had a friend in town that taught guitar lessons. And I was like, I'm going to take guitar. And I took legit guitar lessons from this guy that went to some fancy school and whatever. What's that? Music school, like on the East Coast? I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Somebody listening will
Somebody
know.
will know.
They'll be like, why don't you know?
Yes, that one. Starts with a B, maybe. Maybe. So I took lessons, and I actually forced myself to practice. And I paid this guy for weekly lessons, and I took lessons from him for 3-4 years. And then I was falling off my practice regiment, and then I was like, I'm not going to be paying you so much a month.
Right.
And I'm only getting as good as, so I fell off that, but I could play Blackbird pretty nice.
Oh, yeah?
That was I got to play a song pretty good, and that was a few years ago, and I've fallen off. And then, 4 or 5 years ago, I was just sitting down at night, started drawing. Mm-hmm. And I was just having fun drawing. I'm not the greatest artist, but it's just practice and practice. And then I was trying to make a thing saying, hey, who wants me to draw him a picture? And I reached out to friends of mine on social media. They're signed up. So I had 10 people. So I'd think about this person and I'd draw a picture. Maybe they'd be included. And
they didn't tell you what they wanted? They didn't
tell me what they wanted.
Brooks wants to draw a picture.
I'm gonna
let him draw a picture.
The first few pictures was done with random pens and highlighters and whatever, just quickly done in 10 minutes.
Right.
And then I'm doing a full page spread, taking 4 hours, getting all detailed with this picture, staying up till 2 a.m, working on these things, sending them off to the people and saying goodbye to that picture and just having fun and moving on from that. But it was, and then from there, I moved on to doing a little bit of woodworking and integrating paint into them. I got a bandsaw from my dad that he had an extra one laying around. So I was cutting out crazy shapes and painting them up and doing that kind of stuff for him. And then randomly I was I want to use this bandsaw. I don't know what to make. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to make just fuck.
Right.
So I just started.
Which is what I started seeing everywhere is just fuck.
Just to fuck. Just quickly draw it out, cut it out with the bandsaw, set it aside. I could bang out 5 fucks after I drop my kids off at school, come home, use the bandsaw for 20 minutes before I take off.
That little clip taken out of context would just be totally a different podcast altogether.
And then I had all these fucks laying around, and I started hitting them. I got paint pens, and I'm coloring up these things, and I was I should make an animal. What animal could I have fuck? And I was immediately, octopus. I'm they got 8 legs.
Right.
So then I started making these fucktopuses, I call them. So on their tentacles just spell out fuck. But if they're tilted one way, you can't really tell. And then you tilt the other way, and it just says fuck, nice and clear. And at the time I was on, or I still am on TikTok. But 2020 I was on TikTok quite a bit, making a couple videos a day and just having fun and meeting cool people on there. Have you been on TikTok much?
Well, I watch it a lot. I'm going to start doing more TikTok, I think. It's turned into a middle-aged people's platform. I feel more comfortable doing it. When it was young people,
it's all just groups. Each group tends to find each other.
Right.
And I found the group of weird 35, 40-something-year-old parents that are just up for doing weird videos and supporting each other. And I'm always about random people, just meeting random people, even if it's online.
Right.
And between commenting on each other's videos and messaging and duetting or stitching, whatever things on TikTok, just make friends. I'm pretty good at making friends with weirdos.
Now yours they're goofy and fun and funny.
They say on TikTok, I've had a few videos blow up, and they're I'm not really in it. Once I start getting a little bit of more people looking at me, one almost had 1 million views.
Oh, wow.
And it was almost some anxiety. I was all of a sudden
the pressure.
5,000 people are commenting and saying stuff to me, and I'm like, step back and be like, this is getting crazy.
And you don't ever expect anything like
Yeah.
that to really, you do it because it's goofy and fun. And, it's cool if people, same with podcasts, it's cool if people listen, that's awesome, but you don't expect.
And one of my videos was me making a fucktopus
Right.
with the bandsaw, and just posted that up. And so many people were like, hey, I want one. And I'm like, okay. So I just made probably 40 of these things.
Wow.
And they don't take, they were so detailed. Probably just cutting them out is like a half hour each one, because each tentacle is like individual. I would draw it out on this plywood and then cut it out and then use my paint pens and color this whole thing. Probably 4 hours, maybe 3 hours each. Mm-hmm. And I was selling them for like $29.
That's cheap.
Yeah.
That's super cheap.
I always I undervalue myself so much. But it was pretty cool because even though it was cheap, it was fun extra money on the side. And then I would take that and I'd go buy some other thing for my wood shop and
right.
do different stuff like that. I have an Etsy page, that there's nothing on it right now. I want to get back into it. Want to figure out something that doesn't take 3 hours per unit.
Man, you probably need to get connected with Mike Bennett.
Yeah, I started seeing that guy after. Have you talked?
He said yes, and so we're going to be sitting down as soon as we can get him scheduled. Yeah. Yeah,
Mike Bennett is. He does similar things, making animals.
His doesn't usually say fuck.
They don't say.
They don't say fuck.
And he's
but he makes a ton of them.
But then he started copying them out for like slow down signs, which is amazing. And I'm seeing these things all over the city.
They're everywhere. I just went through the village the other day, and I saw on the opposite side of where my mural is, on the Healthy Pets building, is a gigantic T-Rex that he made, like huge T-Rex. Mm-hmm. So, he's got the formula down. Yeah. I don't know how all of that works, but... Actually,
Jay from Paradise Guitars...
Oh, yeah. I know Jay. Great guy.
He won that T-Rex at an auction, and that's why it's over there.
Dude, I didn't know that.
But then he won this T-Rex at an auction, but it's 14 feet tall, and he's like, I don't know where I'm going to put this. So then they put it on that big building.
Oh, it's perfect there, too, because there's just that empty lot. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's badass. I'll have to talk to Jay about that because I've reached out to him, too.
Oh, Jay's been on my podcast a couple times.
I love Jay.
Yeah.
I absolutely love him. So
I was the minister at his wedding this past year.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was a cowboy-themed wedding. And he bought
me...
Now,
that I wouldn't have expected, a cowboy-themed wedding.
Yeah. He bought me a cool cowboy hat. I mean, it wasn't super cowboy.
Right. But it's still like... Jay's like punk rock.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
I think his wife's family is...
Fabiola. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from... I think they're from California, but they're like country.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny.
Or they just all... I just saw all these people that were dressed up like cowboys and cowgirls, and I was like... I just assumed one of them had to have been a real cowboy, right?
I'm from Texas, and I know a lot of people who wear cowboy boots and stuff like that. I don't know a single real cowboy. Okay. I'm gonna tell you that. That's not. Okay. That's just a dress. That's not a lifestyle.
I look pretty good in a cowboy hat, but I feel awkward wearing it. I'm like, should I be wearing this? It's like cultural appropriation.
It's not.
Am I wearing it? I mean, I'm not a cowboy.
Of all the things of all the things that they would be offended that you are, wearing a cowboy hat, they would not.
Okay.
They would actually think you were one of them. But no, that's the only thing, probably the only thing about what you've said today that they wouldn't be offended by. Outwardly offended. Most of them inwardly would be like, man, that's pretty damn cool.
So I wear the cowboy hat around the house.
Oh,
I don't go out in public very much.
You should.
Maybe I will.
This is Portland. Nobody gives a damn.
Like I was talking to you before we started recording, and my wife grew up across the street, and she got a job in Beaverton before we were married. She was living out there. And Beaverton, she grew up, southeast Portland and same neighborhood. You could be walking down you see just people walking down Hawthorne, just crazy flamboyant outfits.
Mm-hmm.
Any day of the year. It was Halloween, and we were at Safeway in our costumes, and people were looking at us like, what are you doing? What are you wearing this? And I'm like, Beaverton's, that's out in the suburbs.
That's a different world.
And she had a tattoo on her leg, and some of the other math teachers are like, well, you should, like, you're setting a bad
sounds like Texas.
Yeah, I know. It's like you're setting a bad influence for kids. Like, hey, shut up.
Right? Unless it said fuck, it was probably okay.
It was a flower.
Aww.
Flower tattoo on her leg.
Yeah, coming from where I am, most jobs make you cover them up. Doesn't matter what they are. Most jobs will make you cover up your tattoos, which is insane. Every walk of life gets tattoos now.
It's
beautiful art.
Like at UPS, tattoos that showed weren't allowed. Tattoos and beards, and now I have a beard.
You have
And up until about 2020, middle of 2020, I was wearing a mask to work. So then I just started growing a beard under my mask.
Right.
My wife was sewing my masks, and I had a trademark white polka dot with red mask, and she was making them custom to cover up my full beard. Like it went all the way to the sideburns and went down. So I just felt like I was getting away with something for a couple months. And then they're like, hey, you guys can have beards now and tattoos. And like we got some new, more progressive, I guess, president or something. And they were like, hey, probably thinking we're losing out on a lot of employees that have tattoos.
Right.
Because I had this little Mario tattoo on my forearm, and I had to have it covered up or wear long sleeve.
You want to raise it up so you can actually...
It's just a little 8-bit Mario on my forearm. I had to cover it up, but I know some guys that have full sleeves, and they were wearing long sleeve shirts
in the summer
and like full on pants in the summer. And now it's just like, hey.
And it changes nothing about how you can do your job. Like nothing. As a matter of fact, I'd much rather have a creative, artistic person dropping off my packages than a stuffy, boring, all of them look the same. I'm glad that they made that change. It's weird. It's weird that they made that change, and that it took so long.
The company is 115 years old, so when it started, we were just still going off of that. It was back when just sailors had tattoos. It was like an anchor.
Yeah, that's crazy. What are some things that you want to do now? What are some areas in creativity that you want to get into?
I'm just still just moseying on, enjoying like doing this podcast and doing more art. I've started back in, Halloween. I built this big skull out of plywood and put it on the front of my house with like some tentacles coming and wrapping around the skull. And I thought it was just going to be a Halloween thing. And then it worked out. Christmas came up, and I was like, well, maybe I should do something for Christmas with this skull. So then I made like a big Santa hat, and I put it on the skull, and I have a spotlight on it at night. And then it was almost February, and I was like, okay, he's still got that Santa hat on him. Valentine's is coming up, so I got some hearts in the eyes. And my wife, I got the plywood out, and her middle name's Rose, so she's got a couple rose tattoos. And I was like, hey, do you want to draw this rose? I'm not very good at drawing flowers, but it's like a 6-foot long rose.
I think I saw that on yours.
And so she drew it on the plywood. I cut it out, and then I painted it, and then she did all the final detail on it. And it's fun. I can understand why Mike Bennett likes making these cool, big things.
Right.
Because, like, my little fucktopusses are probably 7 inches by 7 inches. And they're just little personal pan pizzas.
They're just little babies. They're little babies.
I want to make one giant one on the side of my house.
You absolutely should.
One of these days.
Yeah. No, I think that is so cool. So you're doing a little bit more creative stuff there. You're keeping going with your podcasts and stuff. I'm definitely going to be putting the links to all of your stuff so people can see, follow you, listen to your podcast. I'm envious that you are able to just go downstairs to your basement. I'm glad I have where I have here, but it's so cool that you can do your podcast in your basement.
Yeah, that's been another, gathering up all the stuff. I have my cool podcast table. That's a door, like an old door I picked up at Rejuvenation or something, and I cut that down to size, and I have all the wires running underneath it. I got stickers all over it. One of the other, I don't think I brought this up, inspirations for doing the podcast, I listened to this podcast called Matt and Mattingly's Ice Cream Social, and there are a couple improv folks down in Vegas, and they have so I started, Penn Jillette, the magician. He has a podcast, and this was like a kind of spin-off of that. I start listening to that, and the community for that podcast is a bunch of weirdos that do fun, silly stuff and send a lot of emails in. They got a big Facebook community where I got on this Facebook community for Matt and Mattingly's Ice Cream Social, and the listeners are called Scoops.
Oh, okay.
So I meeting all these cool people that listen to the same podcast, and then they have events every year down in Vegas called Scoop Fest, and I went down to one of those, and it's just 200 people that are just kind of weird, quirky folks, happy, to talk, I don't know, with anybody. Pretty much you're there, you got an ice cream shirt on, and then there's a friend at these conventions. So I went to those, and I'm like, there's a lot of cool folks. And I've met all these cool people. And then I started doing a podcast about that same time that I went to the first one I've went down for a few events down in Vegas and met people from all over the world that are now I'd consider friends, even though I met them a couple times, but mostly interact on the internet.
Oh, that's really cool. I'll have to go to some conventions.
Yeah.
Meet some other weirdos doing weird things.
I don't like reaching out, You
don't like making the first move.
I don't like making the first move. But this person just sees me with my ice cream shirt, and they, hey, what's your name? And then we just start talking. All of a sudden, we're going out to eat some lunch or get a buffet or something in Vegas, and they had all these podcasts recording. First year was kind of a podcast convention. They realized that it's the community kind of just wants to hang out with everybody in the community, not
they don't want to be
and watch somebody else do their thing. So it's a lot of events. They have a big costume party.
Oh, fun.
Different events and cool stuff down there.
A lot more socialization.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. And that was what got me doing the podcast. Just because they are a lot, they're a lot more trained in humor and improv and stuff.
Right.
And can riff off each other. So when I'm with my friends doing that kind of stuff, it's similar.
Yeah, it's natural, because you do that when you're hanging out anyway.
Yeah.
You're just doing it recorded now.
My memory's not good for when I feel like I miss out.
Right.
When I'm have a really good, fun conversation with somebody, and then I walk away and I'm I had a really good fun time. I have no idea what we talked about.
Right.
But now,
I can
if
understand.
I record it, I'm that was awesome. I can listen back to it and do all this stuff and remember it well.
It's cool because I don't know a lot of the stories that I'm going to hear on here, and I listen intently so I can engage. And then still, when I'm done, I go back and I listen to it. I'm like, oh my God, that's so interesting. I was sitting there. Why did I not retain that? So I understand that. It is cool to rehear those stories when you can actually focus on just listening to the whole full story. Yeah, I love that. I've got one more question. What is the weirdest thing you've seen while you've been doing your routes?
The weirdest thing I've seen, I don't know.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
I've seen some naked folks
Sure.
a few times, but who hasn't?
I mean, this is Portland. One year I went to the naked
bike
ride, and it was no joke, about 2,000 naked people. I mean, I've never in my life seen so many tits and ass.
You went and did it?
And I didn't do it. No, I just watched it.
My wife has done it one year. I just happened to be on a street when they were riding by, and I really wanted to do it, but I think the next year was COVID, and they didn't do it that year. Now I feel like I'm less. I was in shape going into COVID, and here we are.
That doesn't even matter. That doesn't matter.
I know.
There's every
shape,
size, everything, and
so much fun.
I never looked at any of it and thought, well, you shouldn't be on that bicycle. I was like, oh my God, the freedom that these people have is so cool. Yeah. So we've seen naked people. We've all seen naked people. Anything else that stands out?
I always feel awkward when I'm like, this person's doing some full naked yoga, like right in front of their front door. That's a full glass, and here I am. I need a signature. And I'm just like, they're not looking towards me, but I'm looking, and I like kind of step to the side of the door so they can't see my face, and I knock on it, and then I'm like, UPS, and then I wait for a while, and then they come clothed.
People who do naked yoga in front of a glass door, they don't care. My friend that I interviewed yesterday, she used to work at porn stores, and people would come in really embarrassed about asking questions about the products. But the people that work there are just like, this is what we do. There's no reason to be embarrassed. You can't ask me a question I haven't heard before. And I think it's the same for, that kind of thing. If they care about being seen, they're all blinds, all doors, everything's going to be all shut up. So I don't think you have anything to worry about there.
I mostly see just nice people. The thing that confuses me most, like I'm out here trying to be nice. Somebody looks at me, I smile and say hello or whatever. But when people are like just angry,
the Karens
are just randomly like angry at me. Like they don't know who I am. Right. Like, don't be angry at me. There's this one story that's pretty great. Maybe. I don't know.
I'll go for it.
So I'm driving, and I pull over to the side of the road, go in the back of my truck to get something. I'm back there for a second. I hear out front horn honking. Fuck you! Get the fuck out of the road! Fuck you! I'm like off the side of the road, and it's a side street. And I come out. I'm like, who's fucking yelling out here? There's this car up, 100 feet. Past me, was able to drive past me, and then started yelling, "Get the fuck out of the road!" And I get out. I'm like, "Sorry, have a nice day." He's like, "Fuck you, you motherfucker! Fuck you, fuck!" And I'm like, "Have a nice day, have a nice day! Fuck you, fuck!" And I'm like just confused.
Right.
And then people are like coming out of the houses.
Yeah.
This probably 75-year-old dude's like just happens to be walking by, and it's like, what's this guy's deal? I'm like, I don't know. He's just still just cussing away at me.
His wife just left him. He just got laid off his job. He's having a rough day.
And then he goes, drives, then does a U-turn, comes back, and he's like 50 feet away from me. And I'm like, oh, who is this guy? I kind of stand behind the truck.
Right.
And he goes, I know you. You're Brooks. You think everybody loves you. Well, I don't. I think you're a piece of shit. And I'm like, and the old guy's like still standing next to me. And he goes, is this true?
Oh, are you a piece of shit?
And I was like, well, yeah, my name's Brooks. I kind of do think everybody loves me around here. And turns out, and then he just drives off. And I was like, have a nice day. Turns out his wife, then he goes and, of course, files a complaint with my boss.
Right.
And I told my boss that maybe that a complaint is coming, but it's for nothing I've done.
Here's the situation,
He gives the complaint with his address and all this stuff, and then they show it to me, and they're like, this is the guy, and he's on my route, and I see him all the time.
Right.
But had never been yelled at by him. And turns out his wife works in the village at some shop, and I'm assuming she got one of my Christmas cards, probably been up on the fridge.
Right.
Says Brooks.
Yeah.
Silly little Christmas card that I hand out every year.
Mm-hmm.
And just pissed off. He thinks, I do think everybody loves me.
Well.
Except for that guy.
Fuck that guy. You what you need to do is you need to deliver your little octopus to him. Just put it on his doorstep.
I delivered some tactical gun carrying case to him, and I was like, maybe I should not say anything to this fella
I take it back. Don't do it. Yeah.
It was every time I'd drive by, I'd kind of look to see if he was looking at me, and I'd wave at him, and I stopped doing that after.
Because that for people who are that intense, that could be instigating. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah. I mean, that's so crazy. I don't understand behavior like that.
Yeah. But, for the most part, everybody loves me over there.
Well, you can't please everyone.
I try.
But
not that hard with some people.
Well, he's got his own issues that we'll never understand, and God, I hope he keeps that tactical equipment all put away and doesn't approach you or anything.
I'm probably on his list.
Oh, God. He's got the list.
The people to kill.
Mailman, UPS driver, milkman that comes to pick up the Alpine roast. He's just got his 5 people, and you just made the cut. I mean, in a way, that might be flattering. Not everybody can make those kind of cuts. I don't think I'm on anybody's hit list, so you've really made it when somebody is.
I got 4 lifetime grudges against me. That's pretty good, right?
I think that,
for the most part.
How old are you?
Only 37.
I think you're right on track.
Okay.
You're right on track.
Okay.
And if you try real hard, you can make an even 7 of them in your life. So
maybe just go for 10.
Go for 10. Yeah. Oh, you are ambitious, aren't you?
I can do it.
Keep being really nice and keep.
Because then everybody else is like, why is he so upset? I don't know.
I have no idea, And then everybody looks at that guy because, witnesses saw.
Yeah.
Witnesses saw him be bonkers.
Yeah.
So now they're all like, that's the guy. That's the guy. Anytime he leaves his house, people are all like, that's the guy. That's the guy that yelled at Brooks that day. He's crazy. So, yeah, he's just making a name for himself now. He could have just been quiet. Nobody knew he's crazy in his house. But no, he had to go and shout out as crazy.
To the streets.
Well, which is a lot of times what happens. It seeps out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm like I said, I'm going to put your links to everything so people can continue to follow your adventures on Facebook and TikTok and anywhere that you have any of your stuff and your podcast so they can listen to both of those.
I love getting emails on my podcasts.
Do you?
If you want to just stop what you're doing right now, listener, get to your email.
Right.
Go to basementbuddiespod@gmail.com. Send me an email, and I'll read it I read every email on the podcast.
You read every email?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
We have a guy that I've only know from being a scoop from social media. He sends us an email every week. Superfan Andy. He lives in New York.
Aww.
And it's just get this email from him. He's just telling about his week. He's got older kids. He's like, my daughter came back from college, blah, blah, blah. We're doing this and that. And I read it every week. And it's just, I love emails. basementbuddiespod@gmail.com.
All right. All the emails. You heard him. If you ever, want to get your stuff out there, all the emails.
Yeah. I could read it anonymous. So if you want to tell a story about murdering somebody, nobody will know.
Nobody will know.
Except for how many 80 people that listen to my podcast.
Make sure that you wear gloves.
Yep.
No fingerprints, you know. But yeah, that's fun. Oh, actually, it's an email. What the hell am I talking about?
Wear your gloves while typing the email.
You can't be too careful. I know I watch a lot of true crime. You can't be too careful. And don't ever type in email to podcaster about murdering my wife, you know, because they're definitely going to find you.
Yeah. One last murder I heard about, and it's like, how to dispose of a body was on this guy's Google search, and I was like, don't do that.
100%. They get caught every time because they Googled, how long does it take a body to burn in a burn pit? Or, you know, like you're going.
You got to write those down on a piece of paper. Bring it to the library. That's why libraries exist.
Go to one of those VPN hider sites. You know, all the true crime podcasts tell you what their sponsors are. These VPN sites that you can check stuff secretly and it can't be tracked, which is so suspicious. Like, why? They're like, I just want to keep having content, you know. I just want to be able to still be able to do what they do so I can have content. So yeah, there's ways to hide that stuff. Don't put it right out there in the world. People are crazy. Well, this has been, I mean, just super cool, super awesome that you came in today, and
so cool.
Yeah, it's a fun thing. This whole thing is a fun thing. So I really appreciate it.
That's a big part of why I do both podcasts. It's just an excuse to have my friends come over.
Oh, talking to interesting people, just about whatever. Yeah, nothing beats it.
Just get like every Sunday night. I will have like just me and my friend John and one of our other friends or somebody else like Jay, like I was saying. And then after work that podcast is after work. So it's like when I get home, my other friend kind of lives past my house. Right. So he swings by for like 40 minutes. We record a podcast and then he drives the rest of the way home.
How often do you do that one?
Every week.
So
it's like try and have him come out on Wednesdays, but sometimes Thursdays if he gets off before I do. We don't talk about at all anything to do with work. We try and keep it a mystery on that podcast.
Well, that's good. That keeps people interested. Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, I'm going to have everything out there for you. I appreciate your time today. And
thank you.
No, this was awesome.
Cool.
Thanks so much. So who are the people in your neighborhood? Funny how weird is all around us. They might be delivering your packages, bagging your groceries, selling you your weed. Okay, well, that one might be more obvious. Weird is a way of life. It's a personality and a mindset. I don't know why so many people have such a negative connotation with weird. Weird doesn't have to be scary or creepy. We need to normalize it and celebrate it. Stop being such a weird snob. I want to thank my guest, Brooks Lyle. So happy he is bringing his weird to Multnomah Village and beyond. Be sure to check out his podcast in the link below. My episode is called Break in Case of Weird, and it's awesome. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Christine Lassiter, mortgage broker of Two Rivers Mortgage. Reach out to her at the links below to get pre-approved for a mortgage in Oregon or Washington. And go to the links below to find more episodes of Finding My Own Weird. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can see how I'm finding my own weird.